Tanda nyamle na labjong se pe tuji che hyujuta tene ta tanda jerdo ngaranzo ta nyamle te compel don do ala tene ta te lame singap je la hyugo ba lame nanjur la zengo ba ta tende yore la tene te ya lama la sorwa tabdu tanda ngaranzo doji chungtung me sonde te teni chila chebar jen yinba teni te ya Ninth Karmapa kunting dunba chura jansu ke zawe lama ta teni kona tudang ka topa ngoten ki tanda pengaran jambal zangbo senki te ke kong ke teni chang ke chola namso sen so chenpo je yaba teala semoto se lintin chung chung je lintin tige uela reje yaba retela trapu je yaba ta teala nguma tuto chimpo tenso tese gamja nyamle na yugi ware junsen karere se na ta tikap la tuzen dabo tende kanya yo mare la tene gangka chakpa cha na ti dai ne pha phe tene yakhan chakpa hyo na tene sukanya ronkin dunkin kecha hienkin kanya me pa hindo emba imbe chena dingen zen cheparjin pelgi yore la tene tena la tutop mambo pelgi yore te yinaya yang kap la tene lo che la chakpa ma cha lo ni la chakpa ma cha tene ti zogi ji la yogu de yela da tende kali chung lo ju yang yore te yinaya tanda pengaran jambal zombo lo job ji la shaja chimbo gomne tena yore la tene kulenda bo kanya ma jungwa shaja chimbo to bang an de churne zambe sonde imbe chna sonde te pe chna cheparji
First, Rinpoche would like to wish everyone good morning. And he would also like to thank you very much for coming here and studying and for coming here and doing all your meditation practice. So thank you very much for that. Now, when we do our practice, it is most important that we need to increase and improve our practice. And in order to increase and improve our practice, it is important that we receive the blessings of the lineage and that we do the practice of Guru Yoga. And so it is for this reason that we recite the various prayers, including the Dorje Chang, or the short Vajradhara lineage prayer that we recite. Now, this prayer was composed by someone who was the root teacher of the 7th Karmapa Chodajatsa, and who spent many years in retreat and gained realization. This was Pengar Champal Sampo. Now, Pengar Champal Sampo spent many years in retreat in a lake in the northern part of Tibet called Sky Lake. And in the middle of this Sky Lake, there is an island called Semodo. And on this island of Semodo, there is a small mountain. And on that mountain, there's a retreat cave. And it is in this retreat cave that many different meditators have gone to meditate. So many of the great meditators of the past spent long periods of retreat in this retreat cave. And the reason they spent all their retreat there is because at that time in Tibet, there weren't any boats or anything, and so it was very difficult to get to that island. The only way you could get to it was in the winter when the lake froze over. And so when the lake froze over, then you could walk across and go to the island. But if in the summer, no one could go there. And so it was a very solitary, isolated place where no one would come and have any conversation. No one would come and talk to you or be with you or anything like that. And so it was a wonderful place to go for retreat. Of course, there was the danger that if the ice did not freeze over in the winter, that you could not get on or off the island. And so there are stories of many great lamas who went there. And in practicing there, for sometimes the lake didn't freeze over for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and so they had great difficulties and couldn't get much food. But when Pengar Jambal Sampo was on his retreat there, he didn't have any such difficulties at all. He had no problems, and he spent 18 years in retreat on this island. And in spending the 18 years in retreat on this island, he had excellent realization that became manifest in his being. And then it is out of this realization that he sang this this song, it's the short Vajradhara prayer. And so this short Vajradhara lineage prayer contains like the essence of his realization, and for that reason it is considered to have exceptional blessings.
Tene ta tela ya misal ge tene jang kamapa kuntin chudin bag tene tela dang sarba tomje ne ti dang sarba te jabdu kangala te se muandabo paintoba deba to mugi wal paintoba yang tin talo sarba chungare tin den backup so chinamba kanga deba ta mugi ne sorwa tab naro chi.
Now for this prayer, His Holiness the 17th Karmapa composed a new melody. And this new melody is one that seems to be very helpful for people. It seems to help people generate a lot of faith and devotion. And so it is a great blessing that he composed this new melody for us. And so now as we recite the prayer, please pray with faith and devotion. Dorje chanjen de lo narodan marba mila
Amen.
Imagining this as the Buddha realm, I offer it so all beings may enjoy that pure realm. In accordance with the capabilities and the diverse aspirations of sentient beings, I ask you to turn the wheel of Dharma, of the greater, lesser, or conventional vehicles.
Tene ta kasenga kapso tanda matapata legendary ke korte ta lodo number ye nane number ni huparela tene ta trenga kapso tanda chute dunbata jepate korwe nimi ta tene talnjor nye parkawa ni pote tas chutin dunbata jepa ni de hyojure la tene ta teya jerdo le junre ke kor inna ya ra korwe ni mi ke kor inna ya ra te ta tanda jewa ngachi te higu jewa ngachi la tene tene teya lege onta sena jitang ge chu ngembe ge dene ge nane le namba yesong yorela tene tongchu nyonjur je le si le kahi gewa inna yung pe top chenpo dipa inna yung top chenpo la tene kahi ge le jendre bote tsendala mamba yung sigre yung ge yore tene ya kahi tsendala mungi mare te yinaya jewa chimala mamba jini nyongjurji le sinkin yore tanda tsendala mungi mare jewa chimala mungi re tene te yendo ya sumba te tene lendrong yinla nyongjurji le sedu ta te tsam top chenpo mayinpe le te la tene tsendala yung mungi mare di jewa chimala yung mungi chaba yo mare tene jewa kahi ki jila juchin rabu zamna legend rabu te mayung yo re la tene te la lendrong yinla nyongjurji le ya le gewa inna yung rong me gewa inna yung rong top chun chun tenzo la nyongwar mangi bele jay sena nyong kare juchin rabu zamna jay sena ta jay njepan rabu je me gewa inna shakwa pul gewa inna njepa je tene re na tene tige le chun chun te pa yal ne tene le chinde bo memmen pa yung yo la tene nyongwar mangi bele jang yo re si song yo la ta te kantar yang jewa ngase la tene le chinde bo te men yung yo re
Yesterday, Rinpoche discussed the first two of the four thoughts that turn the mind. These are the contemplation of impermanence and karma, cause and effect, or cause and result. And today, in what are the 7th and 8th sessions, or chapters, the 7th or 8th sessions are the discussions of the defects of samsara and the freedoms and riches of the precious human body. And so these are the 7th and 8th sessions. Now, whether we are talking about karma, cause, and effect, or whether we are talking about the defects of samsara, these both depend upon rebirth and past and future lives. And so in both of these, we need to discuss rebirth and past and future lives. And so in terms of karma, it is said that there are 4 different types of karma. And so of these 4 different types of karma, when we make a karma, when we do an action that is extremely strong, then that it is possible that we will experience the results of that in this lifetime. So that is called karma with a visibly experienced result. So karma that is visibly experienced. This is the first type of karma. sometimes we do an action that is not quite so strong. And so that sort of karma is not experienced in this lifetime. So if we do something virtuous or something non-virtuous that is not quite so strong, then the results of that are not so much experienced, are not experienced in this life, but they are experienced in the next lifetime. And so this is the second type of karma, which is called karma that is experienced upon rebirth. Karma that is experienced upon rebirth. And then for the third type of karma, sometimes we do something that, do an action that again is not so strong. It doesn't have quite as much force behind it. And so whether it is virtuous or whether it is non-virtuous, then it won't be experienced, its results will not be experienced in this lifetime nor in the next lifetime, but in some future lifetime when the right causes and conditions come together, then it will be experienced in that lifetime. And so that is what is called karma that is experienced in other lifetimes. That is the third type of karma. And then sometimes there are karmas that are really quite weak. There are actions we do that are quite weak, don't have a lot of power to them. And these are what we call karma that is not definitely experienced. Karma that is not definitely experienced. And so for this, if the right causes and conditions come together, then it might be experienced. Whether it is virtuous or whether it is non-virtuous, it might be experienced. But sometimes we do something that is virtuous, for example, or non-virtuous, for example, and later we regret it, we offer confessions and purify it, and then it is not experienced. Or it may be something virtuous that we have done that then we later regret, and so then we do not experience the results. And so this is the fourth type of karma, the karma that is not definitely experienced. And so these are the four different types of karma that are described in the basket of the Abhidharma.
Tene ta tela tene karigogi ore sena ta ti legendary tela jiao ngats tela jiao ngats la tene ta ti namjurte legendary le dan debutin su yungi ore la tene ta ti jiao ngats te yong yepe junsen te ta ngaran so sem number hi pa chu ji tela namto mandawan duji ngach chachi jen ten so tene tate rimba yendo chuo chenpa papa nangin ta tren yo na sanyi yo ba sanyi yo na nangyi yo ba nangyi yo na yinyi yo ba kora jundrabo te perna chuo chenpo che yin na ko rimba yendo lo pap ndro yo re la tangpo ne ma ta pap ndro yo re la pe te yendo ta ngaran so sen number hipi gente ya tangpo ni jiwa ngama ni zongde tsenda ni zongde jiwa chimala ko noma mandawa tati rinpa yindalo ti namhi ki jendrabo ti rogi yore la namhi ki jende yepa la tenne ta lu ki noma che yungi yore tandi ki lu ten di ki noma che yungi yore tandi ki lu ten ki noma ti jen roju yang koran lu ten ki noma yenda che khargi yore la luga nwa yenda je khargi re la tini tel jewa chima se ta tinde se jende drogi yore tini tela ngaranso ta memombu ke tene ta te somno tango kapsula o jewa ngachi sengente yosa re somni ichi jenken yore tini te yepi junsen ya ta tanda dodong tenchu nomne salboru song yore la te yepa la tini ichi je tuba yung yore kashi la ta te tabu ke jewa ngachi yepi ichi yomare la ichi yo mare te perna senripa la sopi ke se na jewa ngachi yepi ichi yo mare ichi yo mare te yinaya ngune jewa ngachi yo re se ne ichi yo mare la ngune jewa ngachi yo mare se ne jasha jatamba ichi ji tuge yo mare
And so in order for this karma to work, what we need is to have previous and future lives. So we need to have the previous and future lives. And so we need to understand what is the reason that there are previous and future lives. The reason for there being the previous and future lives is that we have the 8 consciousnesses, so the 8 different consciousnesses, and among these, all of the 51 different formations, the different types of thoughts, move around. And so this is like the flow of a big river. So if you have a great river that is flowing, then it flows today, and because it flowed today, it flows tomorrow. And because it flows tomorrow, it'll flow the next day and keep going the day and day after that. And so it is like a big river that is flowing from one day to the next day. And so in the same way, the continuum of the mind flows from one lifetime to the next lifetime to the next lifetime. And so because this continuum starts in one lifetime, then it creates habits, and then there are various appearances, various different appearances that arise in one lifetime, and then these continue. And so it's just the continuation of these 8 different consciousnesses that go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And then based upon the appearances that arise in these 8 different consciousnesses, the different appearances of our body arise. And so we have the appearances of the body that arise here, and then they lead to the appearances of the next body that arise. And so there's this continuum that goes from one lifetime to the next lifetime of the appearances of our mind and the appearances of our body. And so it is possible that there are some people who really believe that there are previous and future lives. There are people who have read the sutras and who have read the commentaries and treatises, and they are utterly convinced, 100%, that there are past and future lives. So there are people who may be like this. They have this full confidence in them. But it is also possible that there may be people who do not have such 100% confidence. Maybe there is, or maybe there isn't a past or future life. And so it's possible that you might not have such 100% confidence in the past or future lives. For example, there are people like scientists who do not believe that there are future lives or previous or future lives. They do not think that there are such things. And yet, if you think about it, it is not possible to be 100% certain that there are not any past or future lives. There's no way you can prove for 100% certain that there are not past or future lives. And so if you cannot prove for 100% certain that there are not past and future lives, then it is entirely possible that there may well actually be past and future lives.
Tene tanda ngusu ta jewa ngasi yosari somna ta tela jewa chimege tadi yapo je gewa nyamsu len me gewa pang tene tambe chula zendu she tene ti tadi yapo je she gu yorela kalte tela ichi menaya tene ko tene tadi she gu re karire sena yo re somne ichi yo marela yo mare somne ichi mebdu tene che sena yo re che sena yo mare che sena yo na me na ta ko tadi she ga na hiro chebar yo mare me yo na tadi she me na tene kamsang la tudu be kale ka bo yung yo re la tene junsin teacher na ngaran su jewa ngachile ichi yepa tenjuge tene ta jewa chima yepa tadi je sheju kal chemborela jewa chima ichi meba inaya te jewa chima ke tadi sheju te pe ta ngaran su dongla je se na jobo le ongrela tene ti kapsala tadi je me na kale kabo yongji yimbichena tadi sheju te kal chembore.
And so for that reason, if you are completely convinced and think that there are past and future lives, then it makes sense to make preparations for future lives. And so it makes sense to accomplish virtue, and it makes sense to give up non-virtue. And it makes sense to try to be as diligent as possible about doing your Dharma practice. But if you don't have that confidence, if you aren't sure, maybe there are future lives, or maybe there aren't future lives. Maybe you should prepare for the future lives, or maybe you shouldn't prepare for the future lives. If you are, so if you sort of have that doubt of maybe there are and maybe there aren't, then if you if it turns out that there are not future lives, but you have made preparations already, then that doesn't make a whole lot of difference. But if you think that there are not future lives and you aren't sure, but you don't make any preparations for it, then at the time that it comes, then it's going to be rather difficult for you. And so it is important to make the preparations anyways. And so if at this point it turns out that if you go ahead and you make the preparations for your past and future lives, you practice virtue, you give up non-virtue, and you are diligent about the Dharma, then at that point, if there are not any future lives, it's no problem. If there are future lives, then it's really quite helpful. If you have not made those preparations, then it will be extremely difficult for you. But it is not at all certain how soon it will happen. It might come rather quickly that we have to go on to the next life. And so for that reason, whether or not you have full confidence, it is important to make the preparations for your next lives.
Tene ta te yendo ta tanda to Thrangu kapsu heya te korwe nyimi re la korwe nyimi ta tanda ngaranso sung kapsu chitang ta tanda me dungal tene mela ya ta deji dungal ginjurwa dabota tene te yendo tundro la so bangaranso ngusun tongi ore la tene nyelwa ta yero ta ta te ta tene la ta lamayi la so pa tenzo ta te nyalwa ta yeda ko dungali ta da ngus tongge yo mare la ta lamayi ge deji te ngus tongge yo mare ngus tongge yo mare te ngarang gen tongge yo mare la te yo mare sene ta ji tu ge yo mare kare re sene ngarang so ge ta chitang ge megen tunong to 다르다 강바라 소반 메겐 톤톤도 두기 와래라 양 톤톤도 무드빈 통와요 샤르기 와래 베르나 나란스 물럼다 보지나 담메제 드나 니드요나 디게 드네 사샤 만라와 사샤 기보이나 사샤 두보이나 드네 데라 드네 데겐도 네츠르 야보이나 네츠르 두보이나 담물럼다 만다 땅그레 라 물럼제 노아 샤르그레 데 물럼제 노아 데타 녜미 루미 녜미 데 샤르그레 샤르그레 데 있나야 매 연다 게 땡고서 통고 말해 다 롱게 냠뇽 그때네 용기 와라라 베데 연도 다제 나란소 제 냐르와다 두나 냐르와다 이다 노아 샤르지야 바자 샤르지야 바 데네 야나 라다 라마잉 노아 샤르지야 바다 텐데요 tene mepala thaji thugiyo mare la tene teacherna chitang ro re thu ta de na nin khorwe dungal te tang aran so tumum tunhong do churba yena tunro to me ta bje ko giyo re.
And now the subject that we have come to today is the defects of samsara. And so here we have the suffering that humans experience, the suffering of change and things changing that humans experience. And there is also the suffering of animals. And these are sufferings that we can actually see ourselves, that we can directly see ourselves. And then there are also the different sufferings of the hells, of the hungry ghosts, And there are also the joys and the sufferings that the gods and the demigods experience. Now, these are things that we cannot actually see. And we do not directly see these. And yet, we cannot say for definitely sure that they do not exist. We cannot really say that there are no sufferings of the hells and so forth. We cannot definitely say that. And the reason for this is that there are some appearances that we have in common. So there are common appearances that we have. And then we have particular appearances for ourselves. For example, then there are appearances that are not established as being in common. Or let's see if I have a better way to say that. They're not appearances that we can prove as being common to everyone. And so these are appearances of things like dreams. For instance, if you have a dream, these are appearances that only you yourself see, and other people do not see. And yet during the dream, there are various things that appear. Things seem clear and vivid, or they might seem how you can go to various places, see houses, and all of these different things in your dreams, and they do appear to you. And yet you do not share these appearances in common with anyone else, and so they are not shared with anyone else. So they're not common appearances that we have with anyone else. No one else sees these appearances. And likewise, there are the appearances, there are the sufferings of the hells and of the hungry ghosts that we do not see ourselves, but that doesn't mean that they do not necessarily happen. Nor does it mean that just because they do not appear to us, that there are not the joys and sufferings of the God realms or of the demigods. And so for this reason, we cannot definitely say that there are not such joys, nor that there are not such sufferings. And so these are the appearances that we do not have in common. And so there are the appearances that we do have in common, and these are the appearances of the sufferings of the human realm and of the animal realm.
Tene ta tejindo ta tanda melayinaya ta tanda ngaranso tambi chuga dangwa ga on tse na tene dungal number som song yo ala korwin yimi la dungal number som sung de dungal ji dungal se du ta kha he ngaranso ngusu nyamsu nyong de be tene dungal ji number nyong de ba tene tanda longje ge ol de panda botan tene nege nar de panda botan ta te la so pa mende pa to da pa dungal number na so pa yong yo la te te ngaran so me pa ti go yo te me par se pa la ta ngaran so chitang ke khorwan de le talne ta ti dungal de maung pa la manyo wa ti go yo pa che ta tene dungal ni ba te la njurwe dungal sungi war njurwe dungal sedu tanda dungal nyongi yo mare pe deji chungo yinayanda pe deji chembo panjur longche punsam tsopa tene wangtang tang siji punsam tsopa ta tende yaba yung segre te yinayan te tama njurndro ju yaba je mato zani njurwa meba tende yungi yo mare la perna ngaranso Patrul Rinpoche som kunzong lam hyalungu nani song tu te la ta pe ga de nguma pe la teni jalbo song sing gambo shungra teni te yen ta jalbo trisong de sin shungra teni te jalbo chembo tenzo la wangtang chembo zeji chembo teni hirap chembo top ngatang chembo ta tende yore te yinayan tama te tende ji kyunwa re sinkin je mato misal ge ta tanda tongju meba ko yalndro ju yaba ndendro ju yaba shata re so ne pe ga yo na yo re la pe te yendo ta ngaranso nuju la ndabo je yinaya teni pe na greek ndabo ta teni tanda ta roman ge jabo chimbo tenzo be top ngatang chimbo kyunwa re di na chungwa re sinki ji ma to yin kanya tong ya ndabo de shul ndabo teni main ndabo kombe main ndabo re ni re ma to teni tsibu taman gel soba taman ze ta tenden jungi yore la teni teacher na ngaranso chitang dumnal chona ya tombe chu nyams lenju te kalche gi yore la dechi chona ya tombe chu di je mahimba tikap tana la ngaranso tombe chu nyams lenju te kalche gi.
What it says in the different instruction manuals and about the suffering that humans experience is that there are 3 different types of suffering. And so the first of these types of suffering is called the suffering of suffering. And so this is the suffering that we actually experience, the different distresses and sufferings that woes and distresses that we experience in our life. And so the suffering of being poor and impoverished, not having anything. Or maybe the suffering of being stricken by some illness and so these are the actual sufferings that we experience. And so these are sufferings that we do not want and that we do not need, and we need to be free of these experiences. And so we need to make it possible that we do not experience such suffering in the future. We need to avoid such suffering in the future. The second type of suffering that we have is called the suffering of change. And the suffering of change is that there is possible that at times we might have some sort of small sort of happiness, some limited small bit of happiness, but that will at some point change. It is also possible that we might have some sort of great happiness, some sort of wonderful splendor, very wealthy, very comfortable, a huge house, a wonderful situation. It is possible that we might have some sort of great happiness in our lives. And yet, in the end, that sort of great happiness also is something that is going to change. It will not last. That sort of suffering is going to change, and that is what we call the change of suffering. There is an example for this that was given by the Tibetan teacher Patul Rinpoche in his book, The Words of My Perfect Teacher. And what he said in the Words of My Perfect Teacher is that if you think about history, in Tibet there were the great Dharma kings of Songtsen Gampo, and then later there was the Dharma king Trisong Detsen. And these kings were very glorious, they were very wealthy, they had a lot of power and influence, and they had a great kingdom that they ruled over. And yet later, what happened to them? There was not much that could be seen of them. Everything changed and they were gone. And so when Patul Rinpoche was writing, they were not there and you could not see them anymore. There was nothing that you could see about them. And if we think about this in terms of our own Western history, in the West, there were the Greeks, and there were the great Roman emperors. And all of these kings and emperors had great kingdoms, and they had a lot of power. They had great wealth and splendor, large armies and everything. And yet now, if we look at it, what is there that is left of that? There is not much that we can see. The kings are not there, their wealth is gone. If we go and look for it, there is nothing more than just the ruins of a few houses that we can see. And so, other than these ruins, there is nothing left of them. And so, in this way, all of their splendor, everything that they had, is changeable. It doesn't last. And so, in this way, what we need if we are having the suffering of suffering, if we are having some sort of strong suffering, is we need to practice the Dharma. Only this can really help us when we are suffering. Likewise, it is important when we experience happiness, when we have a good situation, when things are going well. It is important at those times as well that we practice the Dharma. And so it is important at all times, whether we have suffering or whether we have happiness, that we practice the Dharma.
Tene ta te hendo tanda sumbaga ondu se na chapan duji jidungal sungi warela. Chapan duji jidungal se na korwa la debo chawna yenda, dungal chawna yenda. Koran rangi genjorni matapa remji duji de sarndo juye pa zondo juye pa matapa rangi genje sungi warela. Tene matapa rangi genje imbicherna, tene tama jodro juye pa genje. Rela, ta tetabu dungal sumje ranking nambale mandeba ta tende sungi yore. Tene ta tetabu la tene ta ngaranso jitang tene dungal te korwa te dungal je ranking bala hine ta tele tarwe ke tap ti dungal te nyong maguba tele tarwe ke tap te gogi yore la. Tene te yang jitang ngaransu chorwa la kari yungi yore se na matapa gomba tang, korwe nyemi gomba tang, gomba la tene te semba jo langi rabo. Tene semba maji pa rabo yungi yore la. Te neka maji pa yungi yore te, neka maji pa te la tene tambe chu nyamlin se gogi yapa hi. Tambe chu nyamlin se ne tene tege senla ta rap to chona ta korwa ndal njik magupa tarba tong tamjin jembe kompon topa perna kasin jesi malari pengor ngarang hubare tene ngan chiwe nje ne rala sai ta nen chimi je sensa sense tene pe chipo ta ngala dungan mandu ta ngala kangal mandu ta nga pe chipo jongsong samba yung segere la yung tugere la teta bu tapata jala kalte ngarang chogata teta bu zendushi matub naya o tangarang pe tambichu la teba cheba yin tambichu la mugu cheba yin tambichu nyanslom ba yin samba che sem la tezi pai patinge yepan rabu cheda tene ta te yepa la tene maung pa la ya tene ko che khorwan thami ni chomman ro tangarang chu sem ke tenla pacha zangboji ya pa yimbe cherna sendala twa top na yong rong sendala ngudum da bo hida ma top na yong rong de chu ge pacha zangboji san la ya pa yimbe cherna tene jewa ni jewa cherav ni cherav la jezang to droji yimba de hi to pa yimbe cherna tene tambi chula jendri shi to pa ta tela tene dewa top to pa ta tela tene san la ta pachi to pa da bo yong ge yore.
The third type of suffering is called the all-pervasive suffering of formation. This all-pervasive suffering of formation is the nature of how all things are in samsara. Whether it is suffering or whether it is happiness, whatever it is, its nature is, it is by its very nature impermanent. It is something that changes from moment to moment. And so this is so whatever it is, whether it be happiness or suffering, in the end, it is something that will change. Because this is the nature of how samsara is. Everything is going to be changing from moment to moment. And there is nothing in samsara that can transcend this in any way. This is the nature of how suffering is. And so, in this way, we need to recognize that samsara is by nature suffering. Samsara is by nature these three different types of suffering. And so we need to try to find a way to free ourselves from this. We need to find a way to emancipate ourselves from this suffering of samsara. And in order to do this, we need to study the Dharma, and we need to practice and do the Dharma. Now, it's possible when we are meditating upon impermanence and upon the defects of samsara, it is possible that we might get might get a bit depressed, we might get discouraged, we might find ourselves unhappy out of this meditation. And it is true that this can happen. You can get depressed and unhappy from meditating upon impermanence and samsara. But this is only a temporary unhappiness. And actually it is quite beneficial for us because it makes us practice the Dharma. And so because of this, we just realize that we need to practice the Dharma, and through that then we attain the benefits of practicing the Dharma. And that benefit is that in the end we do not need to have any fear. We practice, we become discouraged about it, we practice the Dharma, and then eventually we attain some accomplishment and we come to a place where we do not need to have any fear. This is, as Rinpoche described yesterday, about the song of Milarepa, that out of fear I went to the mountains to meditate, and now I have come to a place where there is no need for fear, Milarepa said. And so he came, it is a place where we can practice the Dharma. We can come to a place where there is no fear. We can come to a place where we are happy. And so this is possible that this will happen. We can make this happen. We can come to this place where there is no need to have any fear. But even if we are not able to do that, even if we are not able to be diligent enough to completely come to a place where there is no fear, practicing the Dharma like this, and thinking about this, and thinking about impermanence and the defects of samsara, makes us want to practice the Dharma. It gives us faith. It gives us devotion. On the basis of that faith and devotion, we practice the Dharma. And then because of that faith and devotion, we generate a sort of deep, a real deep conviction in our beings. A deep conviction that we can do that. This is right. This is the right thing for us to do. And so this deep conviction that we need to practice the Dharma, it creates a habit. And so that habit, or latency, a latent habit, then is stored in our consciousness, and that then is reawakened in future lives. And so then in future lives we are able to practice the Dharma. And so then from rebirth to rebirth, and from lifetime to lifetime, we will be able to practice the Dharma, and we will be able to develop, and we will be able to attain the accomplishment of the Dharma. And so then, as a result of this, we will be able to attain happiness.
Tene tatela yang tanda tetardo tan korwini gambala tene tambichula lo jupata ta teje so jepate ta tanjurni parkawate sumarela tene ta tige korwini mi ta tanjurni parkawa tenzo ta tanda tri mari mesergana dudu mato songyo marete yinaya ta ngaranso tanjurni parkawa se dupe tanda ngaranso milutopate kalvasangbo indu tene kalvasangbo indu tela ndang uni tinjuk de yakpoje chonggu yore tene ta tela tene tanda ngaranso miluto tene ti masipage tene tambe chuodon jal tambe chuodon jalwe masipage tambe chuela tepatan ichichi ne tambe chuchi gola huju yopate pe masipe kalvasangbo retla tene tatari chenamba chetang miluto tambe chuchi gola hyo tene tambe chu tarwe kaps tene milutopa tene milutop ni tambe chu don jalju chunga tambe chu don jal ni tambe chuchi gola huju chunga te pe kalvasangbo hito chunga rela tene tela inji minji ngaranso tene tikap tanala tene rangin la pembike jo tinani rang la tene mahomba la kalva ne kalva parto dunga nyoma gu pato de chi person so pato pe jo rabote so ta pa imbe chena chula zamba te kalche more.
And so in this way, by meditating upon the defects of samsara, our minds are able to enter into the Dharma. And then following this comes the discussion of the 8th session. The 8th session is on the precious human body with its leisures or freedoms and riches. And so in the instructions here, these are described quite concisely. In the eliminating the darkness of ignorance, the discussion of the precious human body with its leisures and riches is really very short and concise. But even though it is described short in only a very short and concise way, it is actually quite important. So the precious human body with its leisures and riches is extremely fortunate. We are very fortunate to have attained such a body. And so now that we have it, we need to sustain it. We need to maintain our body. And so we have all attained precious human body. And then having attained this precious human body, we have also come into contact with the true Dharma. And then after coming into contact with the true Dharma, we have generated faith and conviction in the true Dharma. And based upon that, we have begun to practice. This is all an extremely great fortune. In particular, for all of you now here in this room, you all have attained this precious human body. And you've obtained a precious human body in a time and a place where the Dharma has spread. And you have come into contact with this Dharma. And you have then encountered the Dharma. And you have entered the gate of the Dharma. And so this is really extremely beneficial. This is like the cause that will be able to benefit both you and others. And so it is very important that to recognize it and to have it. And so this is the cause that for you, it is something that will make it possible so that in the future you will not need to experience suffering. It is something that in the will help you in the future be able to experience happiness. And so you have attained this this cause for this, and this is really extremely important. It is really extremely fortunate.
Tene tate tabuga kalbasang chung kaptana la ngaranso tombe chuchu gola hubare la tene te hudu tela tepata ichi chemboje ji ne be zanggo yore te zangdu tela tene patru mboche yang pe yadu tela tene loe panganye pandaboje 상네 배가 바래라 드니티 롱에 방안에 빠세도 될라 드니 배다나 지당 근데 중 로주요 말에 되나 대다부지 정세나 생기다고 레라 드니 그마 다 메제 롱아제 탕첨보 제라레 드니 탕첨보 될라 다 샤르카나이 메롱아인도 될 샤르카나이 로카나이 노카라이 tene renda to chonda yo na ta tel song ta yo re thang chimbo che la le sa du tene ta kanan ro ha ko yo mo re la ta ko chi ji de ji me du de ta kana me ya yo ma re ke cha tu sa yo ma re kare chi go re tene khale ta du te la ba ju ji tene ba ju ji ge za sa tene ta tna ba ju ji yo re so tene ba ju di za la ro 바주 ngамati zone tene ta tel korang song to na baju de ta meya sa chela dogre ta ko tenga ma ya na te chorna ta langwa de nyeg mare te ma chorna ko ta meya sa chela le dogre so ne baju ngamala joni roni ta te baju de ya thai ma thai pha thai tene gasing re du baju de meya sa chela le dogre ya tene ngarang langwa ni dogre ya Petejanto, tene ngaranzo tambi chuga gola hudu tela tene ngaranzo zendu chi guguresi tene beka yore la tene tetabu tene tepata ichi chi to na tene beya bu yore.
And so this precious human body with its leisures and riches is really a very great fortune. And so it is something that can help us have faith, and it can help us then develop confidence in the Dharma. We can have a very strong and great faith in the Dharma. And then based upon that, we need to be diligent about our Dharma practice. And so there is an example that the great Pato Rinpoche gave about this. About this here. And this is an example of the blind man and the cow. And and so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to tell this with a straight face. This is the story of the blind man and the cow, and this is not necessarily a true story. But it's like an example. It's something that could happen, and so there is this blind man, and he's in the middle of a huge plain, a great plain, and he does not know where he is. He cannot tell where he is. He does not know what direction east is. He cannot see. He does not know which direction east is, where is south, where is west, where is north. He doesn't know where anything is, and he's all alone in the middle of this huge plain, and he can't find anyone. He doesn't know anywhere he is. There's no one he can ask, where should I go, how should I go? There's no way that he can find his way out of this plain. And so he is standing there in this plain when a cow comes by, and the cow brushes up against him. He feels the cow, and he realizes, oh, I can go with this cow. And so he grabs onto the tail, and he grabs so hard that he won't let go of the tail. And so he grabs the tail, and he thinks to himself, I can hold on and I can follow this cow, because what he is thinking is that this cow probably has an owner someplace. And if I just follow this cow wherever it goes, then eventually it will take me back to its owner. And so he grabs onto the tail and he follows the cow wherever it goes, and so it goes up and it goes down. It goes over and it goes back and it goes all around, and finally the cow brings him back to the place. And so it's because he brings it to a place where there's some people he can ask for help. And so it's because he's holding onto the tail. And so it's like that we need to grasp onto the Dharma, and we need to hang and we need to hang on to it for our dear life. And so we need to be diligent about our Dharma practice. I'm not sure how Rinpoche manages to tell this story without laughing in the middle of it. And so we need to be diligent about the Dharma, and we need to generate a lot of faith in it. And this is something that we can do. This is something that we can generate the faith in the Dharma, and we can grasp onto it, and we can take to it. And if we do this, then it would be quite good.
Tene ta tela ngarange tanda ti pe yapate che number long and about is love you marite ina ya ta ti che do te patang mu gi ni nyamlin che na tene ta du kande yung ge pen ra ta tene ma ya na re la tene te ta bu tene tambi chute maji pase chute kalchim bore.
And so this example with this example Rinpoche is not intending to say that you all are like blind people, but rather what he's saying is that this is just an example of how this is how you can generate faith and devotion and be diligent. And that if you do generate this faith and devotion and are diligent about it, then it is something that will be quite beneficial for you. And so we will leave it here for this morning and do a little bit of meditation.